Hey guys, Bo here, KG5 Media. I'm here with our president Tony. First off, Tony, thanks for being here. So obviously because of our 90-year celebration, we've got a video series talking to past and present players about their era, and we thought it was a good idea to start off with Tony since he's our president. So first off, Tony, tell us how you ended up here at Glenorchy Cricket Club.
Well, it's quite ironic actually, Bo, because I actually was born and bred out this way, Claremont boy. I just happened to be playing cricket as a 16-year-old with Derwent Cricket Club, and because my old man and a few of his mates played, and a couple of players from South Hobart saw me play one year and said, "You want to come up next year and have a game?" And so I went up to South Hobart, had to find my way up there and get home and all that sort of stuff because I wasn't driving at that stage. And yeah, so I had my first 7 years up at South Hobart and played first grade in my first year up there, which I was lucky enough, and must have got a few runs against Glenorchy in 1980, because I remember after the game, me and James and Brian Eade, a couple of club legends obviously, came up to me and said, "Would you be interested in coaching Glenorchy next year?" And I had no thought about that sort of stuff as a 24-year-old. So I believe at the time I was probably the youngest coach Glenorchy had. But yeah, I had to think about it obviously, but I lived out this way anyway, so I was a northern suburbs boy, so it didn't take too much because there was a different culture at South Hobart that I played in versus the culture and the history with Glenorchy. So, and there's a lot of legends out here then and a lot of older guys still playing cricket, and particularly in second and third grade back on those days. So yeah, it was a great opportunity to come out. So that's how I ended up there, through a bit of good luck more than anything. But yeah, it was, don't regret a day of it. Don't regret a day of it, yeah.
Sounds good. So, who are some of the best and worst players you played against and with?
I can't say the worst because I got myself into trouble, but the best players I played against always stand out. Brian Davison, Roger Woolley, and Snowy Bevan, Ian Bevan. So they were the three that stand out. I was lucky enough to play against Richard Hadley in a game. I'm not going to talk about that because I was too sore from getting hit with the ball. And a guy named John Hampshire. But those guys, Brian, Roger and Snowy, I played against quite regularly, so and was generally on the receiving end of it most of the time. The players I played with, I mean, I came out to Glenorchy and had a magnificent history of genuine icons of the game. But in my era, it was the Chris Broadbys, the Ian Jameses, and whilst I didn't play a lot with Roger Hughes, that was in the late 80s, Roger Hughes was obviously up there as well, so they were probably the three better players. But yeah, I came out here in 81 too to start with, and yeah.
Who are some of the memorable characters, I guess, like the larrikins, or as we'd call them today, I guess, pests that were at the club?
Oh, look, we didn't have any. No, that's not quite true. John Gunter, he wouldn't mind me saying it, Gasher Gunter, because if he didn't sing Edelweiss weekly, he certainly sang Edelweiss every second Saturday night at the club rooms, and he was pretty good on the ground with a bit of banter and a bit of cheek. They call it sledging, but I'm not quite sure it was that bad. But so Johnny was actually funny because you'd guarantee you'd always have a bit of fun with John around, or he'd do something funny or stupid. Yeah.
So, I guess, as opposed to characters, what were some of the memorable moments from your playing days here?
Lots of them. To be honest, lots of them. I think the one that's I'm really proud of is the guys I started playing with and/or were coming through the club as juniors in the early 80s. I'm still mates with today, 35, 40 years after. So, you're talking the Greg Butterworths, the Brendan Wilsons, the Scott Coopers, Dean Coopers, Martin Kellys of the world. We still catch up regularly nowadays, so I still see a lot of these guys. So, yeah, Dean, Greg Butterworth, Brendan Wilson are certainly, they're great mates of mine, and certainly have had a lot to do with them since then. So the memorable moments from a playing point of view, my record is 3 premierships in a row. We played in 81-2 through to 83-4 and got beaten each one of them, so by Clarence. My excuse is that we were actually washed out or had rain effect in 2 of those 3. We certainly would have won the 3rd one. We had Clarence in all sorts of trouble, but they finished on top. We were beaten fair and square in the 2nd one. In the 1st one, there wasn't a ball bowled, and if we'd have won the toss, I was pretty confident with our attack we'd have got stuck into them. But history will say we missed out by 0.2%, I think it was, in that first year to finishing on top, and so therefore we lost the premiership. So we lost to Clarence again in my last year of playing first grade, which was 89-90, and I think we were 5 for 17, and I lasted 4 balls, so I got a duck in my last senior first grade game. So that was probably my most disappointing one, to be honest, the 89-90, because we played a pretty hot side and Greg Campbell had got selected in the Ashes tour the night before, and he went through us. He bowled as quickly and as well as I've seen any quick bowler bowl, and we were 5 for 17, so we'd had the game, we'd lost the game on day one. So that was pretty disappointing. It's a pretty fair side. Clarence had obviously a pretty good side and were better, but I don't think we were that bad, you know. So that was the most disappointing, but I think I'd rather get to a grand final and get beat than not get there at all. But we also won a couple of one southern final and a statewide final when I was coach of the first grade side. So yeah, that was some mostly great memories. Yeah.
So before we done this interview, you were telling me how you've, I guess, travelled around and whatnot. So what made you come back to the club after you've done all these different things, and what's made you decide to come back?
Yeah, it's a bit like Back to the Future, isn't it? 20 years ago, I think a bit longer actually, but yeah, I finished up, previously in about 95, I think I was on the committee and was president for a few years, but basically stepped away from the club in the late 90s and then obviously moved to the mainland, so that was my excuse for not having any involvement in the club for about 15 years, but came back in 2015 and didn't get back involved with sport in any way, shape or form until a couple of years ago, where I started to dabble in a couple of projects around sport, and then all of a sudden got the opportunity to say, would you like to get involved with Glenorchy Cricket Club again? And yeah, it all happened pretty quickly, but I'm really pleased to come back out here and get the opportunity to do it. And yeah, I think it was really out of left field, but I think the giving back to the club and the history it had and the way I felt about the club wasn't too hard a decision to make, actually. Yeah.
So you've played during the 90s. What's different from the 90s to, I guess, now? What's changed?
No, not much. A lot. Yeah, we had. I think we had 4 teams, and a junior side, an under-17 side. So that's the thing that's changed. Obviously, the number of teams. We've got 18 teams. We want to get bigger. And so obviously the amount of facilities you've got to have and the resources you've got to have to support that has obviously changed. From a off-field perspective, I think you've still got the same challenges. I think the boards aren't that different in terms of structure than what it was 20 years ago, but you've obviously got to manage a different dynamic and a different number of teams and a bigger club. And I think the other side of it is society's changed generally. In life, in sport, and how we behave as individuals. So that's obviously changed in 20-25 years. But from a pure cricket point of view, obviously the amount of talent and the teams that you have, and I suppose one thing that I've obviously picked up since coming back is that we don't have the weekends or the Saturday nights at the club like we used to in the old days now. We all were proud to come back to the club in 4 teams. We'd all stay there Saturday nights most weeks. And society's changed on that front as well. So understand that's more difficult and challenging, but one of the things I missed out about, one of the most memorable things about the club is that when we lost all these first grade finals or whatever, we actually won the club championships 2 out of those 3 years, and we put a lot of emphasis on winning club championships because we were proud of what we did as a club. So that's another driver behind the culture of this club, is that we weren't just a first grade club, we were a Glenorchy Cricket Club, we were a cricket club, and we loved the fact that we had some great old players and some famous names playing 2nd and 3rd grade to help the young kids come through the ranks. So that was really, really positive. So that's probably one of, apart from the other memories I already mentioned, but that was still close to my heart, the club championship, the emphasis we put on that. I'm not quite sure the broader cricket community recognised it as much as what we did, but Glenorchy were known for that, how strong they were through the grades back in the year. So yeah, the changes are obviously quite significant in the on-field stuff for sure, and the number of volunteers you need to manage that. That's probably the other key part, is that you obviously need good people, which we have got. We need to make sure we retain them.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get into the quick fire questions now.
Ooh.
So what's your nickname?
Purse, as in Purse Wade. Dean Cooper gave me that and keeps calling me that today. So Purse, which is pretty straightforward, really.
Junior cricket club.
Didn't have one. I didn't play junior cricket. I just went to play City Association as a young kid with a bunch of adults, but I learned a few things pretty quickly in that. So yeah.
Favourite cricketer?
I'll have to give you a few examples on that, because the old blokes will remember Doug Walters. Loved Doug Walters growing up. next generation probably Viv Bridges, and obviously current day, or not so much current day, but Ricky Ponting is just, apart from being Tasmanian, great leader, great captain, great batsman. So they're the three that probably stand out.
Famous person you'd invite over to dinner?
I've got a few. Richard Branson, I wouldn't mind having him over dinner. I'd just like to know. Yeah, I'd like to know about his lifestyle and how he could help Wonky Cricket Club out with all his money he's got. The other guy I've always said when I've sort of leadership stuff, you get asked this question. John Lennon, ex-Beatle. You wouldn't know him, but you've probably heard of the Beatles, haven't you?
I've heard of him.
Yeah. John Lennon was the other guy, but he's not alive anymore anyway. So yeah.
Hidden talent?
Oh, I don't really have any talent. Although I've got some juggling balls at home and I practice that every morning before I step out the front door, but I'm still not that great at it.
Good hand-eye coordination. Biggest pest in your team?
Oh, I think I can't go past Johnny Gunter. We didn't have too many pests actually, because we were put in line pretty quickly by the old veterans, but yeah, John always had something up his sleeve he could have a bit of fun with, so yeah, I'll still give him a rap on that.
Phone app you can't live without?
I'm showing my age now, old school. It's probably Insta, Facebook. Yeah.
Alright, that's good. What do you love about Glenorchy Cricket Club?
Oh, I think, as I said earlier, I think, this is great about the history, because we have a great cricket club because of the history. I just think it's just the culture I grew up with here. As a 24-year-old, and I know the guys that I'm still mates with all came here as young kids, as 16, 17-year-olds, and we always talk about the old days, about the history of the club and what we did as a group on and off the field. And I just think that's what drew me back to Glenorchy. Look, I've got, as you know, relatives with mixed up with Clarence, and there's no way I'd go and help Clarence out. My brother knows that as well. So, but yeah, because we've had so many great tussles over the years with Clarence. But yeah, I can't think of another club that has a greater culture and a greater history as Glenorchy. But yeah, that's just it's a general thing about. That's why we've lasted 90 years. Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.